What's the most of layers of color without a ground coat that you've ever encountered?
About 7, I think.
7, yeah.
Trying to
Salt red?
It's a red. It's a red.
It's a red, yeah.
It wasn't salt red, but it's a red.
So that's a lesson for all the consumers out there. Don't buy red
Don't buy red cars.
if you want to smash it up. Welcome everyone to Workshop Uncut, the long version. My name is Jai, and I have Shane Buckley here with me, who I'll literally introduce you a bit, but I'll talk a bit first about Workshop Uncut. It's an inside look into the inner workings of a body shop, because cars don't just respray themselves, they actually have people that do it. And so we wanted to go through the process, share with you guys the process, more of the technical aspect from your perspective, Shane, and basically go through the longer form video that we had earlier out. So I'll say a bit about you, and then you can maybe further expound. So Shane is a spray painter of 7 years. He's from the land of leprechauns and clovers, Ireland, and one of his great achievements is winning Apprentice of the Year of the whole of Ireland. Whole of Ireland. So the whole of Ireland. So well done to him on that achievement. Very good. Anything else that everyone wants to know more about you?
Yeah, like I was saying, I had won the Apprentice of the Year in 2016, and runner-up in 2015, and then won it in 2016, which was kind of cool. Then we just moved over to Australia last year, so trying to still adjust to the weather. It's kind of hard. So
nice. Here in Brisbane, nice and warm.
Yes, it is warm.
Okay, so look, as you can see, we're actually watching the same screen. Let's go through a bit of the footage and give a commentary about what's happening. I'll ask a few questions, and you can feel free to chime in with whatever you see on the screen. So take it away. I like the music.
Yeah, it's pretty good actually.
So what we can see here is application of wet on wet. So what is wet on wet, and what's the purpose of wet on wet?
Yeah, well, wet on wet is just literally is a ground coat color is the main thing, and then it's a primer. So it's kind of two functions in one. But wet on wet gives like the best adhesion you can possibly get for a base coat again. So you put it down first, and as you see, you're putting down like a light grey color. All the colors have their own specific one, so you tint it to whatever you need. And then like that's a kind of darker grey color of a base coat. So you're putting down a nice light grey primer, and it just helps that color stand out.
Sure.
But mainly it's for like color matching and good adhesion for motion. So
a couple of things I'd touch on there. So a primer. So when you say primer, what does that actually mean? So what is it in terms of automotive paint?
We're priming because it's like literally a protective layer. So when we put down our base coat and our clear coat, we're putting down like a barrier to stop any like water, daily debris, anything that's getting back down to the bare steel.
Right.
And you see they have an E-coat from the factory, which is that kind of black color. So when we're putting on our wet and wet, we're literally putting on an extra layer of protection on top of that.
Right. And adhesion as well.
Exactly. And it's great adhesion for the base coat for the next coat.
So often when you find, when we say refinish is the re-application of a factory finish. When you see paint flaking off, generally speaking, there's a lot of reasons, but a lot of reasons can be that there's no primer, or the primer hasn't been done properly, or hasn't been flashed off properly.
It hasn't got the actual stick factor that you actually need. So that's what the best thing you can do is a wet and wet beforehand.
So what we're actually watching here is you're actually you're wiping it down. What are you actually doing there? What's happening?
So I would have cleaned all the panels already with like a methyl water and then our Prepsol. So you've cleaned it all down already, and that blue rag then is it's a tack rag. So it's kind of like a sticky substance like honey. So it literally gets rid of the last bit of dirt or any debris that would have fallen. And then you go over the whole panel and just make sure it's absolutely spotless before you go for your wet and wet.
Because dust is the enemy, isn't it?
Yes, dust is the enemy.
well, we might show that a bit later, what happens with dust in paint and how that actually ends up and what you actually see. Yeah, that's interesting. So is this actually a plastic primer or is this actually just wet on wet?
The wet on wet is the color that's going down, so that bumper would have been plastic primed already.
Okay. Which is that a clear?
Yeah, it's kind of like an orangey liquid that's actually coming out of the tin, but it goes on clear. You don't even see it going on. So it just promotes flex. So bumpers and things will be flexed when they go back on the car. And everyday driving, they're going to move and everything.
Yes.
So plastic needs to move. So you need to have a promoter to be able to move.
Yes.
So everyone kind of thinks paint is solid, but it actually needs to be able to flex as well.
Yeah, especially on plastic. So I guess plastic primer is really particularly has to be flexible because it's plastic.
Yeah,
it does flex.
It is going to move.
And I guess what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of plastic on their cars, like bumper bars.
Yeah.
Even a couple of guards now these days.
Everything.
A couple of things. Yeah. There's a lot of parts that are plastic. Hey, it's Jason.
He walking.
So a lot of wet on wet, eh?
Yeah, there was a lot in that bit.
Oh, so I guess just to touch on another thing that you said about the ground coat. So why do we have to have a ground coat? Because you said it's color specific. So, for example, darker color, you might have one type of wet on wet.
Yeah.
On a lighter color, let's say a yellow or maybe a silver, like a light silver, you'd have a different wet on wet.
Yeah.
And it's for coverage, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, maybe you can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, we have a color wheel basically. So all the main primary colors you have it. So like you said, a yellow would be a lighter grey kind of color of a ground coat. Then you have the darker blues and blacks. They'd be a darker ground coat. Then again, it helps for coverage basically as well. It's like that. You see, I'm putting on the first layer of base coat, and it's literally turning the color straight away.
Yes.
So if I had put on a darker ground coat, it wouldn't have done that. Or if I put on a really light ground coat, it wouldn't have done that. And you're using so much more materials.
Exactly.
Which doesn't need to happen.
So instead of like 2 coats of color, you're going to be like 10 coats of color.
3, 4, 5, 6, just to get the color.
What's the most of layers of color without a ground coat that you've ever encountered?
About 7, I think.
7. Yeah.
Trying to build
Sol
up
red?
the color. It's a red. It's a red.
It's a red. Yeah.
It wasn't Sol red, but it is a red.
So that's a lesson for all the consumers out there. Don't buy red cars if you want to smash it up. Oh dear. But fortunately, this one's more of a silver one, isn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of like a darker grey.
Yeah. So how many base coats did we?
So that color you just put down 2. So we put down the first one. We nearly had the color already. Put down the second one just to ensure that we have everything absolutely covered. And then you finally put on like a technique coat. So you sit back a small bit more and you just go with that a little bit slower, and then basically your metallics lay down nicely. Everything flows out.
So that's the technique coat. Actually, I should know that, but I never knew that. So I'm learning as well.
Yeah. So like you're seeing there now, it's the second coat of base coat, and you're literally we have the grey. We have the grey color and everything already achieved. So
this is your technique coat?
No, that's even the second coat. So we skipped over the technique coat.
Okay, all right.
The technique coat is a bit slower. So I
need to fire the cameraman there.
Where was he then?
Exactly.
So technique coat is a bit slower, and it just stops like that kind of mottle effect that you get on if you ever see a car that has like this kind of wavy effect or tiger stripes as we call them down along the bonnets and flat panels. It just eliminates all that. So you put down your 2 coats for your color, and then you put on your technique coat really nicely, and you have a lovely metallic sitting nice and flat across the whole thing.
Yes. Actually, funny you mentioned that, and this is just an FYI for everyone that with metallics particularly. Like you can have, I heard, you can have 2 or 3 painters with the same mix of silver, and just because of their application, the silver looks different.
Yeah.
That's the way
it's always going to happen.
The way the metallic sits.
Yeah, exactly.
And the technique that they put it down.
Each painter is different. Each painter is going to have that maybe a couple of millimeters of a distance, a couple of seconds faster, it could be anything. It could be down to anything. But each person is going to have a different finish. So we're trying to replicate. Maybe that panel has been painted before, so we're trying to replicate that guy. Maybe it's original from the factory. We're trying to replicate a robot. So that's our job. Is we have to replicate the next panel or replicate whatever came from the
That's
factory.
the challenge,
firstly.
isn't it? Yeah,
That's the goal.
that's the
That's the goal.
And I suppose in some ways, I guess the reality is that we can always recreate to a good standard, to a high standard, to a really close standard, but to recreate exactly a factory finish is always a sign of a repair, of a refinish.
People have a perception of going for this like mirror finish, like glass level, and that's okay if you're doing like a show car or something, but an everyday car coming from factory doesn't have that.
Yes.
So if you have this perfect finished door compared to the factory door, and it looks completely different, it's not going to look right.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, we have
100%.
to replicate what comes from factory, bring the car back to original again.
100%. Yeah. The joys of being a painter.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about the clear coat. We talked about the primer, talked about the base coat, which is the color, and now we're looking at the clear coat. Maybe tell us a bit what's happening here, what's going on here with the clear coat.
Yeah, so clear coat's like the final step. It's your finish basically. It's the last step, protectant. It's the UV resistance. It's everything. So what we're going to do is, like, I'm literally there now, I'm covering everything again, cover all your edges and everything first, and then go down, put on your first coat of clear, and then...
Is this a technique coat?
No, that's literally the first coat, Clear is a lot slower than base coat.
Right.
So you're putting on that little bit more material.
Well.
You're putting it on a lot more.
Right.
So you want, again, like we're looking for that finish that we're going for, but you also don't want to put on too much to get that nice flat finish.
Of course.
So
and get runs as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A nightmare.
Yes.
So
so runs is literally like
it's a build-up.
It's a build-up of paint that looks like it's run.
Sagging.
Or snot, we call it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so then, like we were saying earlier, like the bits of dust, if you had a bit of dust, now is the time you're going to see it pop up. So you put on your clear coat, you're going to have this nice finish layer, but then you have this little bit of dust sticking up, and it's just protruding out, which doesn't look good. It doesn't look nice afterwards.
Of course. And you can see, because it's so reflective, especially on a darker color where everything reflects, it's super visible.
It stands up straight away.
And the industry term for dust in paint is nibs. Nibs.
Yeah.
So, and what you see in the detailing process when you move after the paint is a denibbing process, which is literally, sanding back the paint,
any little bits of dust that would have been
just to get
in
it out, and buffing it up.
Yeah, see, the bonnet has been laid flat now, so when we were putting on the wet and wet and the base coat, it would have been sitting up straight. So it's so much easier to see your coverage when the bonnet is sitting up straight, that you can see exactly what you're doing. And then you see it
straight. You mean flat?
No, it's as vertical.
Straight.
Vertical,
okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's fine on. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've already clear coated the underneath of the bonnet vertically, and then I've laid it back down horizontally.
Yeah.
Because if you ever look at any car, the first thing you see is the bonnet. It's going to be a nice flat finish across it.
Yes.
So that's what we're trying to replicate again. You want to get that nice finish, and if you were to do that vertically, you get your runs. You get the everything. So you can see the difference between the two there now. And that's still only the first coat.
Just the first coat, yeah.
So again, we put down the first coat on everything, and then we leave it about 10 minutes to flash off. So it just literally gets that little bit harder.
Tacky a bit,
exactly. So if you were to touch it, it would literally come off like spider webs.
So actually, that's a good point. One thing that people don't realize about modern paint, or the paint that we use now, is it's two-pack. It's two parts.
Two parts,
which is the hardener.
The hardeners,
and you've got the
reducers.
Resin, the
reducers,
Reducers. Well, that's three.
Three parts.
You got the resin, or whatever you call it. Whatever that is.
Yeah, you have the clear.
I've been up here technically. Yeah.
You have the clear, and then you have your
hardener, and you have reducers as well, which makes it a bit
so
more thin.
It's our job to...
Jeez, we've got 30 seconds left, so you better... We've just been babbling away. So that's it, that's the finished product.
That's the finished product then, that's what we're aiming
and hopefully you don't see any nibs in that.
I don't think there was.
Put everyone's awareness to it, so don't go looking.
So unmasking and everything afterwards, and then it goes on to the detailing stage after that. And the guys do their job.
Well, there you go. Well, that was 12 minutes. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate your time, and that was. Hope you guys learned anything. If you guys have any questions, leave comments in the comments section or wherever this is, and we'd love to share more information with you guys.
Exactly. That's all it's all about.
See you guys.